All right, let's get straight into those issues and more. Joining me now, Sky News host and political editor at the Daily Telegraph, James Morrow, and the national weekend political editor at the Herald Sun, James Campbell. Gentlemen, welcome. Eve of Australia Day, we all know that. We all love it here on Sky News. In Canberra tonight, the official start of events with the big function. You've seen it there on the lawns at the front of Parliament House to announce the Australian of the Year. But elsewhere, we've got a whole raft of virtue signalling CEOs, not just saying that they're working tomorrow and that they're not going to celebrate by the rest of us, but they're making it very, very clear in the media. Presumably, James Morrow, they want all the accolades from customers that they're anti-Australia Day. But I tell you, that puts them on my woke list of businesses not to support. And I reckon I'm not the only one.
Well, no, and in fact, I think, Peter, you would be joined by about 2/3 of Australians, depending on which poll you believe. Roy Morgan had about 2/3, IPA has had about 2/3, all saying, they like Australia Day on the 26th of January. Thank you very much. And along with their activism for the yes case for the voice, these corporates are going around and they're all, signaling to each other that they're all really right on, but they're going to alienate an awful lot of customers. I just think it's terrible business for these guys to, think that ticking a box on their reconciliation action plan is more important than actually not alienating customers and getting down to the brass tacks of doing whatever it is their business does, whether it's, provide a telephone service or, goods in a shop or whatever it is.
Yeah, James, you know that these CEOs and others all belong to a club and they all have to sort of sign on to the same woke mantra if they want to move from Telstra to Kmart or Kmart to Qantas or whatever. It's absolute groupthink. And of course, the Prime Minister says he doesn't support a change of date, but political staffers today got the right to work tomorrow and take another day off, as have all Commonwealth public servants. So this is clear where the Prime Minister's real position is, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you can see it again the way they've allowed the councils to drop their citizenship ceremonies tomorrow. That was put in place by the previous government to make sure that the councillors who wanted to resist this push had weapons. They had that ammo that they could fire on it. That's gone. The government's being really clever about it. They're being sneaky about it. They're letting other people do the work. But the problem we've got in Australia is it's a cartel economy. If you don't like one phone company because it's pro-voice, good luck finding one that isn't.
Let's go to that inflation data out today. Annual inflation rose 7.8% the December quarter. That's the highest rate increase since March 1990. I made the point a little earlier on, James. I think the economy, despite all the noise around the voice and everything else, is the number one issue. But of course, the government wants to keep blaming the other mob. I think punters are seeing through it. They want the government to act. They're concerned particularly about household cost of living. And of course, the more we're talking about the voice and everything else, we're not putting the government under pressure to do the job they're elected to do.
Yeah, no, and I think, Peter, you're absolutely right. Isn't it so sneaky of them? I mean, this sort of double play that they're doing here. On the one hand, they're saying, don't look at the economic figures because, by the way, it's not just 7.8% overall inflation. Drill down into those numbers. Food inflation, 9.2% year on year. Now, Anthony Albanese, who grew up, in straitened circumstances, raised by a single mother, he should know that is just a punishing impost on families that are doing it tough. And yet they're not doing anything about it. They're having this fight about the voice. And yet what are they doing while they're having the fight about the voice is they're calling the other side, the side who says, hey, maybe it's not such a good idea to change the Constitution willy-nilly, the culture warriors. So it's this double-barreled play that they're doing. That's all an act of magician's distraction, Peta. And, I think at some point, it's going to become clear that their goal is going to be to run through on vibe and momentum to an early election in 2004. And then, but by then, I think the economy is really going to start to bite on an awful lot of these issues.
And of course, a reminder, the emissions obsessions only hit our energy markets at the moment. Transport's next. Obviously, that hits farmers very much with the cost to get things to market. We've got all these other imposts coming farmers' way in terms of methane emissions and more. If you think food, fibre and everything else is expensive now, you wait till this year is over. James, you're a dad. You've got kids to educate. The latest Productivity Commission report says our education system is parlous. We're going from bad to worse. Yet reports out today about the cost in not just private schools and Catholic schools, but also the state school system. As taxpayers and parents, we've never paid more to educate our kids, but we've never got a worse result either.
Absolutely correct, unfortunately. We've increased spending on GDP, a percentage of GDP being spent on education has never been higher. We stuffed all that money in, through Gonski into the school system. And anybody who's got kids in schools at the moment and had a really close look at it during lockdown, they can't really gaslight us on the state of the schools after we all sat there watching what was going on the Zooms. You know, everybody I know, it's the barbecue stopper amongst parents, the state of the schools, what their kids are learning from little kids onwards and upwards. And the problem is that this is a state issue where chances are we're going to have wall-to-wall state governments pretty soon on the mainland. The federal government can say what it likes, it can do what it likes, but it doesn't run a single school. And if people, on the Conservative side of politics, want to get involved in fixing this, they should get involved in state politics.
Well, let's stay with state politics, James. Put your Daily Telegraph hat on. A poll out today. We know there's a March New South Wales state election, Saturday the 25th of March. Polls today point to a Labor win, but Dominic Perrottet, despite the Nazi uniform, remains preferred Premier. Perrottet on 33%, Minns on 29%, a whole lot of undecideds, 38% there. I suspect Minns is struggling a bit on the name recognition, and that's where the Premier has it ahead of him. But the campaign hasn't started. What's your take?
Well, yeah, look, it's interesting, this number, and what you suggest that Chris Minns is struggling on the name recognition stakes, because what Labor has really done this campaign cycle that they haven't done in previous ones is to run an almost presidential-style campaign. Everything is focused around Labor. Everything is about Chris Minns. His whole social media campaign, it's about Chris Minns will do this, Chris Minns will do that. You see him out doing reels and stuff on Instagram and things like that. It's all about Chris Minns. Now, this is a risky strategy, of course, because while he's saying a lot of sensible things, that won't scare the horses and are in fact designed to, get those votes in Western Sydney, which is really where this election is going to be decided, things around real bread and butter issues like, tolls and things like that. There's just, this little sense there that Dom Perrottet is still, people don't have it in for him, even if they think there's a bit of an it's time factor around the New South Wales government. And that is what I think Chris Minns struggles up against here. And the thing that I'll say about New South Wales is actually that we are blessed here in that we have the best, probably premier and best opposition leader in politics at any state or territory level. But for Chris Minns, the question is, but beyond him, what's the B team look like? What does his cabinet look like? What does his bench look like? We have very little idea what we would be getting here in terms of who and what they stand for. The average punter certainly doesn't. If New South Wales does decide to hand it over to Labor on March 26.
Just before we go, James Campbell, I want to get your take on Lydia Thorpe and this split that's now inside the Green Left political movement. You've got obviously Labor pushing a voice. You've got Lydia Thorpe leading the charge for the Greens, opposing the voice, certainly opposing Australia Day. She says we're still at war, white Australia and black Australia. She'll be very much front and centre tomorrow at these Invasion Day rallies. She also wants all of us, if we own a home, to pay Aboriginal people a weekly rent because she says they were never properly compensated for Indigenous lands.
You look, Lydia is a person of principle. She believes that sovereignty was never ceded. Adam Bandt's problem is that he ceded the Greens sovereignty on the voice to her. And a lot of Greens voters want the voice to succeed. She's now sort of destined to play, it looks like, the Phil Cleary role. Cleary, the guy who wrecked the Republican referendum in 1999 because he didn't like the model. Thorpe is a huge problem for the Greens. She's not, I'm told by senators up in Canberra, on speakers with most of the party room up there. Bandt's office spent a huge amount of time trying to manage her. Half of them would really like it if she left and went out and was a black politician for black issues, rather than essentially, some of them are worried, tarnishing their brand with some of their more, we say, tealish voters. So, yeah, more power to her elbow, I say.
We'll leave it there. James Campbell, James Morrow, thank you.